I'm Botanical Lich, and here is the bee. If I had $1 billion, well, I'd be rich. I always used to think that I wanted to be rich. I thought it would be amazing to be able to purchase anything I wanted. But I think now that if I was rich, and I mean really rich, like $1 billion rich, that I would run out of things to spend my money on. Not that there wouldn't be nothing left to buy, but that there wouldn't be anything left that I wanted to buy. That doesn't seem to be a problem for the world's billionaires, who appear to be content with spending their money on making more money. Personally, though, I've realized that most of my dreams involving money are centered around my friends and family, and further extend to those I have any relationship with. Specifically, I would like to provide my friends and family with lives where they can live in comfort and pursue their dreams, their heart's desires, whatever those may be, while I live a life of sporadically connecting with them and whisking them away to far-off places. This would, most likely, only take a small percentage of my $1 billion. So what could I do with the rest of it? Honestly, I was born with the privilege of having parents who were comfortably middle class. As such, I've never had a situation where I was really at risk for not being able to afford food or not being able to afford housing. Money doesn't hold the same weight to me as it might to those people. But I also didn't grow up being able to purchase anything I wanted. I understand the desire to purchase luxury items, eat fancy foods, and travel the world. I don't think that any of those things are bad. In fact, I am completely in favor of someone using their limited wealth in order to increase their own quality of life. In order to exemplify those beliefs, this first section of this project will be a semi-intensive list of personal desires, things I would like to spend money on for my own selfish benefit. As such, you may want to skip the first section of this project, but I suggest that if you are not convinced that billionaires just shouldn't exist, that you take a moment and at least look at the ending of this video, where I'll give a small recap of what I'd spend my money on and discuss what billionaires should be doing with their money. Let's start with the truly selfish things. I would, of course, achieve the dream of all Gen Z and millennials and buy a house. Outright, no mortgage. Probably not one worth more than a few $1 million, though. I don't want to live inside a big city, and I don't really have plans to have a large family, so it would only need some decent entertaining spaces. Make no mistake that I could have a home under $5 million and still have an excess of amenities. A pool and private theater would easily fit within that budget, even if I also included 10 acres of land. It is likely I would also purchase a second home as a second base of operations for my travels, and hiring people to go shopping and do the cleaning would probably be an eventuality because no one really wants to do their own chores, no matter how okay you are with it when you're in a situation where you need to. 2 housekeepers at $50,000 or even $100,000 a year wouldn't even make a dent in my finances. I would, of course, want to travel extensively, dragging along my friends and family so that I can have good company on my trips. I would very much like to travel around the entirety of France, and I have a long list of other countries I would like to visit, ranging from Japan to Norway and Egypt to Brazil. This would be much more enjoyable if I put time and energy into getting more familiar with some of the more common languages, like French and Spanish. You know, the imperial languages. A 1-week trip could be decently achieved with a budget of around $85,000, especially if I avoid classic rich person things. I really don't want to visit these places and just do tourist things, bougie or otherwise. I would want to engage in the local culture and cuisine. I do think that my largest one-time expenditure would probably be a yacht. I think I would spend about 40 million on one, which is a lot of money, but it would be a large part of the rest of my life. I've always loved being on the water, and just about any experience that has to do with it. When I lived in apartments with pools, I would go to them almost every day after work, and when I go to the beach, I spend my whole day in the water, no matter what the weather is. I would very much like to just sail around the world, inviting friends and family to join me for a week or two on a luxury boating experience. Honestly, I would be perfectly content to spend the rest of my days living on the waves. Now, onto things that I would still define as inherently selfish, but might be seen as altruistic in the hellscape that is late-stage capitalism. Namely, I would give a lot of money to my friends and family. This is alluded to when talking about kidnapping them for the sake of taking them on vacations around the world, but I would also give them money more directly. In order for them to be in a place where that I can kidnap them at any time, they need to be comfortable in their own lives. Unfortunately, this isn't the case for many of my friends. I have people in my life who are desperately in need of money. I have a friend who is in collections on their private student loan and is barely affording rent on a cabin with no running water. I have a friend who just had multiple surgeries and is now having to work extra jobs to pay off those bills. Setting aside my close friends that are in crisis, I grew up in a town where about half of the families were dangerously close to the poverty line. While I don't keep up with all of the people I was friends with in high school, there were a lot of the people who fell into that group who I think deserved better. I don't think I would be able to enjoy my life if I knew that I was leaving some of those people behind. This is a very selective philanthropy, where I would be deciding who was worthy of my assistance. This definitely weighs on me, but I like to think of it as sharing my luck instead of arbitrating an individual's quality. If I ever have $1 billion, it will be because of luck. Luck that a book I wrote went viral, luck that I won the lottery, luck that I was a plaintiff in a massive lawsuit, luck in being able to trick my way into an important position in a company or government. If I do end up being one of the lucky ones, the least I can do is share that luck with those who were lucky enough to know me when I was younger, and lucky enough to get on my good side. Remember, these are situations that could be looked at as largely altruistic. I'm handing money over to people with whom I have a passing relationship, mostly those I connected to in high school. I have no obligation to these people, and, as such, it could be seen as charity to care for them. I have trouble thinking of it that way. My plan is not to give money to the poorest 50 people in my hometown, or the poorest 50 within my generation, but to select around 50 people who have had some sort of positive impact, large or small, on my life, and reward them with money. Money that I can pretty easily assume would change their lives drastically. Most of the people I'm thinking of would likely have their lives changed by $10,000 or $20,000, and I would be giving them somewhere between $200,000 and $1 million. These wouldn't be donations, but offerings to take my mind off the pain and suffering they were experiencing. Suffering that I would always know that they were living in, relative to myself. These would be people that I currently think of frequently, and would likely continue to think of frequently, even if I were to become rich. In 10 minutes, I can think of over 30 people who I would like to give a large amount of money, because of the effects that they've had on my life. In truth, I've never been good at talking about myself. I can't process why other people would be interested in my personal life, or what I might want to spend my own riches on. So forgive me if these explanations are lacking. I hope that they are, at the very least, demonstrative of the fact that I am not claiming that I would turn around and hand the entirety of my riches to charity. I think that that is a major pitfall of those that espouse the redistribution of resources or major tax hikes. They are too hesitant to identify with the wealthy. That is to say, identify with the desire to be wealthy that secretly lives within each of us. And so they come off as unrealistic paragons who pretend that they don't have a selfish bone in their bodies. I want to make sure that you know that I am selfish and that it's okay to look out for yourself. To a point. It's past a certain point of selfishness when holding on to wealth and resources becomes the sole reason of possessing them that I think you cross a moral line. So, here it is, the portion I hope everyone will actually get to. Too long, don't care. Or, where I spend a moment describing how I would selfishly spend my riches in more concrete amounts so that I can get to my bigger point afterwards. As I've said, my biggest wish is to be able to gallivant around the world with my closest 53 friends and family members. In order to do so, not only would I need to be comfortable uprooting myself for a few weeks to a few months, so would those friends and family members. The easiest way to achieve this, given my billionaire status, would be to just give them large sums of money. Let's say $500,000 each. This immediately spends $27 million of my $1 billion, or 2.7%. Now, let's look at the actual travel calculations. I would want to go on 2 one-week-long vacations a month, 8 months out of the year. We'll make things easy and say I pay round-trip $10,000 per person for 4 people's flights, and $2,000 per night per room. Assuming an average of 2 rooms and another $17,000 for entertainment for the week, this brings the average trip cost to around $85,000. Remember that I plan on taking 16 trips a year, and together that's $1.36 million a year for, say, the next 70 years of my life. That's a grand total of $95.2 million. Let's call it an even $100 million, add that in with the money that I've already given to my friends, to total $127 million of my $1 billion. I'll spend another $50 million on a giant yacht to sail the 7 seas, and maybe some oceans, and if I can get up the canals a Great Lake or two, and another $20 million for houses and house services. I've now racked up $197 million. Less than 20%. That may sound like an extravagant amount of money, and it is. But in this scenario, I gave myself $1 billion to spend. And I'm nowhere close. Even with giving away $50 million, what I'm saying is, in my wildest selfish dreams, I can't come up with ways to spend $1 billion. Not in ways that would actively bring me joy. I could easily go on a permanent vacation and get nowhere near spending my $1 billion. Spending $35,000 a week wouldn't make a dent in my finances. Keep this in mind while you engage with the rest of the project. I think it might provide some context for the frustration that bleeds through when I'm discussing some of these topics. Now, though, with all of my selfish expenditures out of the way, I'm left with a lot of money. And I have to figure out what to do with the rest of this fake money that I fake have. And that is what the other parts of this project will be about. A question for my editor. Does the double negative make it real money? Presenting the alternate title of this project. What the fuck are rich people doing? One might think I would need to empathize with rich people in this moment. After all, I just spent however many minutes describing how I would spend a bunch of money on myself. Alas, it can't be so. There is one major difference between how I see myself and the other richies. I would spend my money, whether it be on selfish things or on the betterment of society. If I had money, I would be spending money hand over fist. Conspiracy alert. Capitalism. It's a little early for me to come out to you as a raging communist. And I'm not sure that I even am one. I can acknowledge the ideas and the merits that gave birth to capitalism. However, the way that I see it, the only way that any form of capitalism has any hope of working is for the people with the most money to be constantly losing their money. This can be because they are spending it, but high taxes also fulfill this requirement. Basically, trickle-down economics has no hope of working if the glass at the top can expand to hold however much liquid is poured into it. I am not a fan of pure capitalism, but even those who are should be upset with the status quo. It's the rich that are ruining capitalism. It might not be completely the richies' fault, though. I mean, it definitely is, and I plan to show that throughout the rest of this project. But you can't expect someone to spend tens of billions of dollars on personal gratification. There just isn't enough stuff in the world to reasonably spend that much money on yourself. Even when they do manage to spend their money, personal rocket ship projects, anyone? A lot of the money gets funneled to other rich people who just hold on to it so they can design their own phallic space vehicle someday. So, here I am, not mad at the rich for their extravagant expenses and their flippant spending, but the opposite. I want them to spend more of their money on dumb things, so that those companies that make those dumb things can hire more people, so that those people can buy the things they need. The rich have too much money sitting in their banks and stock portfolios and in property, and someone really ought to do something about it. Well then, what can I do right now? I've spent a little time thinking about that while writing these scripts, and if anyone takes anything away from any of these messages, I hope that it's this. Do something now. Make one person's life a little bit better today, or this week, or this month. I feel like if more people with means had made a habit of going out of their way to help others before they had those means, we might not be where we are today. So, do something that you're capable of. If you're barely scraping by, don't give your money away. If you're too busy to see your friends and family, don't give your time away. Don't limit your giving to strangers or charities either. They're fine recipients, but so are people closer to you. I give a portion of each of my paychecks to a friend that I know is worse off than I am. That counts. Looking after your brother's children for a night counts. Picking up groceries for your parents while you're at the store counts. Make one person's day better, however you feel comfortable. It's a start.